I'm here in Washington, D.C. I'm on the East Coast this week, and when I flew over here from Vancouver, Aeroplan wanted to charge me about 100,000 Aeroplan points to fly in business class. Now, many of you may have similarly noticed that Aeroplan's dynamic pricing has been a little bit out of control in recent weeks and months, especially with the recent surge in demand for travel, and especially domestically and within North America. Now, thanks to the strategies we're going to talk about in this video, I ended up only paying 24,100 Aeroplan points for my flight in business class from Vancouver to Washington, which is a much more sensible amount. And in this video, that's exactly what we're going to talk about: how to actually mitigate and defend against Aeroplan's at times ridiculous dynamic pricing policies. We're going to try to understand how the dynamic pricing actually works, and then we're going to talk about a whole bunch of different strategies that you can employ so that you never end up getting fleeced by these sky-high amounts that are sometimes charged under dynamic pricing. If that sounds good to you, and if you don't like to pay more Aeroplan points than you need to, then go ahead, drop the video a like just as we're starting out right here. That really helps the video's performance. It'll help even more Aeroplan members be able to defend themselves against the dynamic pricing. And let's get started. Now, before we delve into the methods of defending against dynamic pricing, it would be useful to understand what Aeroplan's dynamic pricing actually is and how it's supposed to work. Aeroplan uses dynamic pricing on Air Canada flights only. You're not going to find dynamic pricing on any of the other airlines, whether they be Star Alliance Airlines or the partner airlines like Etihad Airways or Gulf Air. Now, the reason that dynamic pricing exists on Air Canada flights is that it's a way for the airline to offer Aeroplan award access to every last seat on an Air Canada flight. And this is an important point to highlight, because if we're going to talk about dynamic pricing in a fair way, then it's important to recognize that yes, it does give people more options to redeem their points. Under the old Aeroplan program from before 2020, oftentimes if you search for last-minute Air Canada flights, you just wouldn't find any results, and you just wouldn't be able to use your points at all. Now, you are at least able to redeem your points for a last-minute flight, even when the lowest award seats have been booked up, even if it will cost you a ridiculous amount of Aeroplan points. That's still more options than you had under the old program. But having said that, comparisons to the old program grow less and less meaningful over time, and I do think that the current program's dynamic pricing model has its fair share of problems. So with that in mind, let's delve into some of the methods that you can use to protect against dynamic pricing when it rears its ugly head, which, if you're a frequent Aeroplan user, it will eventually. We'll start with some of the more basic strategies, and then we'll move on to the more advanced ones. Some might call that a certain attitude that you can adopt. Now, the first way to stave off the threat of Aeroplan's dynamic pricing is to book far in advance. This one is pretty straightforward, because under dynamic pricing, the points prices work the same way as the cash fares. The closer to the date of departure that you book, the more likely it is that the fares, both with cash and with points, will be high. On the other hand, if you're booking farther in advance, let's say more than 6 weeks out, it's more likely that the fare will be a more reasonable baseline fare, whether that's in cash or in points. And if you're using Aeroplan points, you might be able to actually find prices that fall within the published range that Air Canada puts out on the charts. Of course, you also have to account for the season that you're traveling in. If you're booking flights for winter break or spring break, then even booking 6 weeks out will probably result in very dynamic prices that are way above the published ranges, because everybody's booking flights for this range, and those few lowest seats are probably going to get booked up very soon after they're released. So that brings us to the next tip for mitigating dynamic pricing, which is to be as flexible as possible when choosing flights within a given date range, or even sometimes within a single day. Especially if you're looking for a popular routes like Vancouver-Toronto or Vancouver-Montreal with multiple scheduled flights per day, oftentimes you'll find that the dynamic pricing model can vary wildly among flights that are just a few hours apart. For myself, as somebody who's traveled fairly frequently on the Vancouver-Toronto route ever since the new Aeroplan program has launched, I have very often found that on the same day there will be flights at around 20,000 points in business class, around 60,000 points in business class, and around 100,000 points in business class. And as long as I'm fairly flexible in terms of my schedule, I'll go ahead and choose the one that's priced the cheapest, and among those flights, I'll choose the one obviously with the lie flat seats on either the 777 or the Boeing 787 Dreamliner. And that'll be my way of mitigating dynamic pricing because I'm able to choose the ones that are still priced pretty low. But of course, oftentimes we're just not that flexible with which exact flight we can take. To give you an example, when my partner and I need to travel from Vancouver to Toronto for the weekend, we usually need to schedule around her work schedule, which means taking the red-eye flight on a Friday night and getting into Toronto on Saturday morning. Now, obviously, having a lie flat seat in business class would be super valuable in that case, but if the pricing is dynamically high on that flight, what do we do? And this is where, as we've mentioned before on the channel, your Air Canada eUpgrades that you earn from Aeroplan Elite Status, combined with what's known as the Latitude Attitude, can help you save big on an Aeroplan redemption that would otherwise be dynamically expensive. Now, we've gone super in-depth into eUpgrades on a previous video, so if you want, you can go check out that video too. But I thought in this video, it'd be helpful to do a live demonstration of the whole eUpgrades and Latitude Attitude process with an actual real-life booking that I'm gonna probably make over the next few months, and see how we can use this to stave off dynamic pricing and actually pay a more reasonable amount of Aeroplan points instead. So with that said, let's turn to the computer and I'm gonna start the booking process. Let's say we need to fly from Vancouver to Toronto on the upcoming Thanksgiving weekend. So we're gonna book a one-way flight here for October 8th because we're looking to take the red-eye flight. Now here's the list of flights, and if we scroll down, we'll see that the 10:40 p.m. flight is 181,000 points in business class. That's obviously way too expensive, and actually all of the other options on this Friday are also pretty expensive in business class. Clearly, the lowest priced options have already been booked out. Now, as a reminder, the key with Air Canada eUpgrades and what's known as the Latitude Attitude is that when you book a Latitude fare in economy class, as long as you have Aeroplan Elite Status, you can clear your upgrade, whether it's into premium economy or business class, at any time after making your reservation. You don't have to wait until 3 to 14 days before your flight to clear your upgrade, which would be the case if you booked one of these other fare categories. So you want to be booking economy latitude, and once we do that, we can see that it'll cost us 4 eUpgrade credits to upgrade one-way flight between Vancouver and Toronto, which is more than 1,500 miles in distance flown. Now back to the search results. Before we can book an economy class flight in Latitude, we need to see whether there's eUpgrade space available. So we go up here to sort and filter, we choose eUpgrades, and then we select business class, which is the cabin that we're trying to upgrade into, and press view results. And here, well, we can see that the red-eye flight here is actually saying waitlist. And that means if we click on it, that even if we were to book economy class Latitude, we wouldn't be able to upgrade instantly into business class because there's no upgrade space available on this flight. The flight is so booked out that even the upgraded seats are not available, and if we were to request it, we would be waitlisted instead of confirmed in business class. Now that's obviously not ideal, but we can see that many other flights on the same date are available. And my eye is now drawn to this flight departing at 5:10 p.m. I'm thinking maybe my partner will just be able to get off work a bit earlier and will hustle to the airport to catch this flight, where even though the direct business class booking is still fairly expensive at 78,000 points, we can actually book economy latitude here for only 21,000 points and then use our eUpgrades to upgrade immediately into business. So we're actually going to go ahead and do that. We're going to click here, book economy latitude, click through the booking process step by step. Now, once the booking is confirmed, you have to click on manage your trip in order to upgrade into business class with eUpgrades. Now wait for the booking page to load and then click on the eUpgrade button. And then you're brought here to the request an eUpgrade page where you can check off business class. It'll show you that it indeed costs 4 credits per passenger. Go ahead, scroll down. It's going to be 8 credits in total. Press continue. And then on the final screen, press I accept purchase. And after that page loads, you will have confirmed your upgrade into business class. And just to be sure, you can go to the seat map and select your seats. So that's a step-by-step illustration of how to confirm an economy latitude booking and then use your eUpgrades to upgrade instantly into business class and thereby stave off the dynamic pricing on a direct business class booking. I hope you did find it helpful to follow that step-by-step. I know the whole topic of eUpgrades can be very intimidating and very complex to somebody who's new to the topic. If you're going to remember one thing about eUpgrades, The reason they're valuable is that under the new Aeroplan program with dynamic pricing in play, eUpgrades allow you to defend against dynamic pricing in the way that we've just illustrated. Of course, you will need at least Aeroplan 25K status in the Elite Status program in order to have eUpgrades in your account that you can then use in this fashion. If you don't currently have Elite Status, don't forget that there is a very compelling promotion that you can use this fall to spend your way to Elite Status on one of the premium Aeroplan credit cards, and you should check out the video that we had made on that dedicated topic if you want to learn more. And finally, here's something that's perhaps a little bit opportunistic, but given that Aeroplan is currently allowing free changes and cancellations on all tickets booked before September 30th, and this deadline is on a rolling basis, it has been extended by many, many months. You can always check your bookings again after you've made them in case they've gone down as part of the dynamic pricing model. And if they have, go ahead and cancel and rebook it for the cheaper price. Because the nature of dynamic pricing is that it fluctuates constantly, sometimes against us, sometimes in our favor. And since right now you can cancel any booking free of charge, get your points refunded, get your taxes and fees refunded, it makes sense to keep an eye on your future bookings for any trips you have lined up. If they do get cheaper, cancel and rebook. Of course, the flip side to this is that the whole flexible change in cancellation policy has likely resulted in a swelled up volume of speculative award bookings, which perhaps has resulted in the sky-high dynamic pricing that we're seeing right now in the first place. Maybe after the carte blanche cancellation policy comes to an end, we might actually see the dynamic pricing levels come back down to more reasonable prices. At least, that's the hope. But for now, I hope you enjoyed the video and that you found it helpful to learn about all of the ways that we can actually prevent ourselves from being fleeced by Aeroplan's dynamic pricing model as much as it sometimes wants to fleece us with those 100,000 point one-way business class flights across Canada. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button down below and subscribe to the Prince of Travel YouTube channel. Just click the subscribe button below the video. And let me know in the comments which of these strategies are you most likely to implement when it comes to defending against dynamic pricing. Do you have eUpgrades in your account that you're ready to leverage for a Latitude Attitude booking? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next video. We're going to talk about dynamic pricing. Oh, the website. Gosh.